Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 277, The Religion of Ancient Greece. This is a fairly short work, 43 pages, but let me say one thing, which is that when I'm working with works from this era, they're double-spaced with huge margins in the initial work, so people who are saying that I'm trying to edit pamphlets are actually wrong. This is the result of compression into a modern format. More paper-friendly, save the trees, also save people some money. Link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books blogs. There are other creation series texts available under the academic header, Babylonian Assyria, Ancient Egypt, and so forth. This one is one of the better ones. A lot of them get into really deep linguistics, like certainly with the Babylonian and Egyptian systems, the language actually feeds into the spirituality and vice versa. With this one, though, the big concept behind it, and this was novel at the time, and I'll try to discuss why. The big concept is that Greek mythology had been misunderstood for most of then modern sort of intellectual discourse, which is that it was Romanized. The idea was that the Latin world, the height of Rome, was analyzing and compiling all of these other spiritual forms, and that the modern Western man was fundamentally wrong in looking at the older myths prior to Rome because they had all been Romanized. Now this, of course, is understood in this day and age. There's a difference, for instance, between Zeus and Jupiter. They overlap. The Latin word for Zeus is Jupiter, essentially. They are technically the same deity, but the way that rituals were practiced, the actual myths behind them and so forth had been changed. And so what happened is that in this particular era, after the discovery of Troy, by Schliemann, of course, you have a rush for more archaeology at the time. This is part of anthropological history, too. All of a sudden, all of these colonialists, they pick up their tools and they cash their check and they go fly out and they go sail off to Egypt or to Greece or something, digging around on islands and in deserts trying to find the next big thing. They try to find the next tomb, and it obsesses people for several decades thereafter, through the 20s certainly. And so you have this reinterpretation because you had more and more archaeological finds, you had more hieroglyphs and petroglyphs being deciphered, you had more and more literature to go on, people were delving into the ancient mythologies and sort of saying, aha, some of these, while they're still mythological, they're about real people and events in some cases, and therefore real places that we can potentially dig up out of the ground. They began to understand that the pre-Roman period was misinterpreted essentially by the Romans for state reasons. And so Zeus and Jupiter, while they are kind of the same thing, not completely. And then it goes on and on. It goes to the iterations of these different gods, talks about how in some cases you have tales about them that contravene one another, sort of in the same sense that I analyzed for ancient Egypt. Of course, Egypt had so long to evolve in the religious sense that their magic started to run into the difficulty of contradiction, because no scribe could possibly keep up with all the spells and all the rituals and all of the tales about the gods. Nobody could have possibly known that the corpus would have taken up a whole bookshelf. It would have been impossible for them to cross-check everything and make sure that what they were doing, prescribing for healing or curses or whatever, was actually accurate according to this sort of canonical material. The canonical material is all over the place. It's more like an elaborate series of fan fiction. You have the same thing to a lesser extent with Greece throughout time. It's actually interesting to see the analysis here. So this is like the golden period of occult literature. We're talking roughly the 1870s through the 1920s. That sort of half-century period really, for the academic material, is the golden age. Before that, you have to go back to sort of the 1820s and 30s to find like the latter-day, more enlightened grimoires and some of the really weird stuff within the occult. So you've got these two basic periods, and then of course prior to that technically the 1600s for alchemy and some of these other materials. So again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. It is part of the creation series, so if you're sort of keeping up with the religious history linguistics angle, it's the next one in that particular series. Right now I'm taking a brief break from doing a couple more of them to work on a Rosicrucian work, actually, that's about some of the great plays, the great operas throughout time of Parsifal and so forth. Now, second and third links to my books, blogs. It goes under the academic header along with all the other similar mythological materials. That's about all. Peace out.